Already. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It's about 6:03 Monday evening. We'll go ahead and get started and begin with questions. See if we have any questions this evening. Hope and trust everyone had a good Monday. Any questions or comments? Nothing? Let's see.
I would like,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
no, I would like to ask the same thing, Ron. If there are questions about anything, period,
Yeah.
No, got silence, huh? Well,
I have a question.
the Greater Faith is not set up yet. Charles is setting it up now. Okay,
Okay.
Okay. We'll give
Go ahead.
him a minute there.
Okay.
would you pause it then?
Oh, yes. Hold on one sec. Get it. Start.
Mike, against the phone.
Okay.
Can y'all hear?
Yeah,
They
we
can hear
good.
you.
Okay, Ron. I was
Yes,
saying
sir.
that I'm like you, Ron. I want to ask the question. I'm see if there are any questions. That's all. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
I do have a question, or I want to make the connection. Today I was reading about two earthquakes, one in the not earthquakes, volcanoes that are really active and they think they're going to erupt. One is in the Philippines and one's in Italy. And Italy is a pretty big deal. My question is, that refers to what we talked about Saturday and Sunday in terms of the earth responding to the way we are treating our world, right?
The earth is responding to the way it's being treated, yes.
Okay.
The way it's being abused, let me put it that way. Because
Okay.
it is abuse.
Okay.
See, when you think about it, the indigenous people saw the earth as being a living entity, and they respected the earth. And not only did they respect the earth, they revered it for the life that it gives. In order for the earth to give life, it has to be life itself. And regardless of the culture that you are in, the earth is always referred to as Mother Earth, because everything that is anchored in the earth that grows is growing from the womb of the earth. The dark place, reaching for the light. And that in itself should speak to us that regardless of how heavy your burden may be or what you're going through, regardless of how dark you may think it is, the light is there waiting for you to reach out to it. You say, how do I know? The same way a plant knows. It does not matter how deep you put that seed knows how to get to the light. It does not grow down, it grows up towards the light from that dark space. And if a tree, if a blade of grass knows how to reach for the light, then it is definitely a part of our being, our essence, to be able to reach for that light. It only happens if there is a desire to live. And What I mean by a desire to live is that if that plant, if that seed does not reach for the light, it dies because it lives in darkness. And it has to have light from the sun in order to live. It has to reach for the light. And when I say it dies if it doesn't, and so do we. When we are steeped in religion, when we are steeped in anything that does not guide us towards the truth, then we are no different than that seed that is not reaching for the light. That seed knows to reach for the light, but we are not reaching for it. And why are we not? Because religion is doing something that makes us feel like we got it. Right?
Ramil, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
I'm
It's a
sorry,
good.
Jamil. I said run. And I don't know why.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But yes, it does. Makes good sense. It resonates. Thank you.
And to feed from that, Pastor, because you made me think about the scripture that says, I have no one to cultivate the earth. Tie that part in, the spiritual significance of cultivating the earth based on that analogy you just gave.
Cultivating the earth is not talking about cultivating the ground. And the reason I say that is because everything that we eat and everything that we plant was already in the ground before we ate it. We did not plant anything originally. It was already there. So the cultivation is not talking about cultivating as you would cultivate farmland or your garden. Cultivating the earth is talking about making sure that the right seeds of enlightenment are within you and or becoming aware rather of those seeds of enlightenment being in you. And the way you cultivate that is not through what we have been taught in the past about church and religion, etc. The cultivation of it is when you begin to question, what does this mean? Meaning, once we read the Holy Book, we want to know what it means and how it relates to us now. That's the beginning of cultivation. And the more we dig, and we use that term dig, to get an understanding of the wisdom that is written on the pages, the more we do that, the more we are cultivating the consciousness, the awareness, the spirituality that's within us. And what happens is the earth consciousness that is dominant now is not the consciousness of Elohim. When we begin to cultivate our desires for enlightenment and understanding the truth of this wisdom, that is when we begin the journey to bringing the consciousness in the earth to a place where it matches or where it is one with the consciousness of spirituality. And the current consciousness that pervades the earth, or that controls the earth, is the substance that has been given to us for us to begin to cultivate the seeds that we were created with. And that's where we are now. But Is that clear enough, or questions about that?
Yeah, it's clear. I like that. I had not seen that before to that degree, the way you explained it. So yeah.
I have a question. I have a question. So, with all that you said about the cultivation and everything and the garden east of Eden, is all this like representation of what's in our head? Like you have the left and right brain, you have the pineal gland, you have the pituitary gland, and all the other glands that's there. So everything that you're talking about is what's in our head is a representation of what you're talking about now?
What you're describing is the brain, and the energy of the brain is evident in that in order to find out if there's something going on with the brain, they do electrocardiogram. What is that? What they do, they use energy to map the brain so they can see what's going on in there. So when we talk about all that you described, these are indeed physical manifestations of spiritual truths. Now, these organs and the organ of the brain rather that you are describing, it does not change in terms of the way it is shaped or formed. The structure of it remains the same, but the energy that flows through it begins to change with your enlightenment. And this physical representation up to now has been the house for intellectualism, the house for devious plans where they emanate. Because what we have done by living by the sight of our eyes, we have lost the sight with our eye, and we no longer experience the true essence of the earth. So we only experience what we see. And when we lost that connection with nature in terms of being one with the earth and everything that's in it, we also lost the memory that of our soul being that spiritual bridge to bring that brain to the place where the thoughts in it are the same thoughts of spirituality that's in what we call the spiritual world or spiritual realm. Does that make sense?
It does. So when we're learning what we're learning, is that the same as us cultivating the pineal gland?
No, it's not cultivating.
Okay.
No, it's not cultivating the pineal gland. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Evelyn. Go ahead.
But no, so is it stimulating?
No, what it's doing is giving us experiences. The enlightenment that we receive, we talk about it opening our third eye, right?
Yes.
Well, as we talked about, the third eye is an experience. So enlightenment gives us spiritual experiences. And so it's not the cultivation of an individual portion of our brain. It is the soul showing us or giving us the experiences that are necessary for us to rely on the experiences that we are receiving based on enlightenment, as opposed to the thoughts that we were given as substance to push us to a place where we seek to understand the true origin of our essence. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because
but okay, so if you will help me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
The pineal gland,
I yield.
the pineal gland is not the only organ, or it's not the only producer of hormones that has an effect on us physically and spiritually. So does the pituitary gland. So what I'm saying in Exodus, the glands, the organs, and I call the pineal gland an organ, but it's a gland. The glands, the organs are there for a purpose. And if we understand enlightenment, then we begin to understand how our bodies are a replica of the essence of our being. And the replication of that is seen when we look at the fluids of the lands of milk and honey that we talked about earlier. It's a replication of that. So everything that is spiritual is manifested in our physical bodies. But we have embraced pseudoscience, or to the extent that we don't believe in real spirituality, because the understanding of the physiology and anatomy from the beginning had nothing to do with science, and that's why I call it pseudo. Why? Because it does not understand its purpose. Even though it talks about the pineal gland, it does not understand the function of it. So what I'm saying in essence is this: it matters not what part of your body we are speaking of. It is a manifestation of a spiritual truth. And if you look at what the hands represent in the spiritual, it represents labor, but the right hand represents authority. So when we start understanding how the scripture speaks about the different parts of our bodies, even the internal portions of it, we begin to see that it is a spiritual manifestation of a spiritual truth. Now, do we have to know what each portion of our body represents spiritually? No, we don't. However, we do have to embrace the reality that we are Elohim and begin to function that way. Why? Because if we don't, then everything, our bodies and everything in our bodies will be guided by the thoughts that are in our mind. And we know that your mind will tell you anything. We've been hearing that all our life. So, and that is the truth. If you simply rely on your mind, you might do anything. However, if your reliance is on enlightenment, it is no different than relying on your soul to be the guide, so that your thoughts are not antithetical, that your thoughts are not different than the thoughts of our Creator, and that our thoughts are for the benefit of humanity, as opposed to simply using our mind and the thoughts being for the benefit of self and no one else. Does that make sense, Ms. Elton?
It does. So help me understand again what you mean by cultivating the
Cultivating
consciousness. Yeah.
Cultivating is what we are doing now. We are cultivating the consciousness of the earth that we have been endowed with, in order for us to bring it to a state of balance, of harmony within the confines of this earth. So as above, so is below. The Creator is not going to do anything below. It's up to us to cultivate our desires, so that we can allow the seeds that we were created with to grow towards the light. And when I say grow towards the light, I mean to increase our enlightenment, our desire for enlightenment, to the extent that we live spiritual experiences as opposed to having a spiritual experience. Does that help you?
Yes. And also, where does elevation come in at?
Elevation is a word that is used because it is difficult to find another word that speaks to the idea of your increased awareness. So when we talk about elevation, what are you elevating to? It is an expansion of your awareness as opposed to you elevating to something. Because if you were created in the essence of our creator, then you have all the elevation you can ever get. You have to become aware of it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I got it now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other
Okay.
questions?
Yeah. Based on all you just said, I'm thinking about. I'm trying to remember something you said Saturday. I was listening to the video. All the intricate parts of who we are, all the egos and the voices and the personalities, and you talked about the I and the me and who is the I and the your body and those things. Tie that all into so part of the cultivating is cultivating that as well, correct? And does all of that become created when we seek pleasure and for the sake of pleasure?
What do you mean created? Right.
All I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to talk it out. So
Okay.
all the intricate parts of us, that all those things then we are born with, it is not something that we, and I mean we, I mean man brought with him, man created. I guess I'm getting a little confused. I guess my theory is a lot of what we see we created, and because we are co-created, we have misused
I got you.
the energy that we have. Yeah, and it
I
has
got you.
built this world. Okay.
Everything that we have created in recent history has nothing to do with our being Elohim. Everything that we have created in recent history was created for the convenience and for the wealth of all of us. When we look at ancient history and during the time of antiquity, we began to see more creativity. Example, it took tremendous creativity to be able to redirect the Nile River without having mechanical equipment. And in order to do that, there had to be a deep understanding of my God, engineer. What do you call it when it's engineer that deals with fluids? Anyway, it had to be a deep understanding of engineering in order for that to take place. And when we think about that, what we look at, we think about it in the way that we move, earth movers now with machines, but there were none. So that in itself is one of the things that was created. In other words, Egypt was a creation by by mankind, those who understood who they were. And they used their spiritual essence, their spiritual acumen to bring these things into fruition. When you look at the pyramids, especially the first one, that creation was done for the benefit of humanity because of the energy flows that's within those pyramids that brings about healing, and that also you can put a rotten fruit in it. The next day it will not be rotten anymore. So the rightness returns to it because of the energy flow. So how did they do that? They had to use divine creative power in order to bring that to fruition. We don't do that anymore. We rely on what we do. We rely on those things that we invent, as opposed to understanding that we are creators. If we use the same tools to build a dam that's going to provide power to an electrical plant that's going to benefit humanity, then we've created something that is divine. But if we take that same machine and create a dam for electrical power, and if you don't have any money, you don't have any lights. So that is not a divine creation. That's a selfish creation. And that is a creation that comes from an adversarial mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
So so the reason that we are where we are is because we don't have an affinity for creation anymore. We have an affinity for making things the way we think they ought to be so we can make some money off of them. Make sense?
So, Pastor, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So are you saying things are, the moment we do things selfishly for ourselves, there's no creativity, there's no growth?
Right.
If you're a selfish person, anything that you hoard or whatever, or just want for yourself, there's no freedom, there's no growth because of your selfishness?
It's because of selfishness.
Well, it would answer this
Honestly,
then. Would it still be creativity, but it would not have the energy?
it does not have the divine. That's why I said this is not a divine creation, right?
Uh-huh.
You can use your energy for anything you want to. When you are functioning as Elohim, everything that you bring into existence is for the benefit of humanity and not just for the benefit of you and a handful of people. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You can take that same energy and create the same thing, and it doesn't benefit anybody. So what have you done? You have used Earth's consciousness to create or to bring use that energy of Earth consciousness to bring into existence this thing that is representing your selfishness. It is a manifestation of how selfish you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
can see
fine
there's no
line
growth.
that's a fine line between the two. And I'm going to say something that may make you cringe a little bit. For most of you, I doubt if you'll cringe at all. The most selfish institution on the face of the earth is the church, the synagogue, the mosque, the whatever religious building that you revere as being something greater than you. The church, religion, Christianity, Islam, all of it teach selfishness. It does not, for example, churches raise money for the missionaries, but the missionaries never get it. The mission is never taken into consideration because the mission money goes someplace else. And even if you send missionaries, it's not to bring people to an awareness of who they are, it's to bring them into the fold of your beliefs. Does that make sense? That's selfishness. I belong to Great New Faith, and we are different than Mount Tabor because we are Word Church. That's selfishness. The more that we are enlightened, the greater the responsibility and the obligation is for us to enlighten others. We're not enlightened for ourselves. We are enlightened to enlighten others. Does that make sense? You understand that?
Yes.
If we were making a profit or off of what we are teaching, meaning that we are doing this for the express purpose of making some money, we wouldn't see nothing, because our greed would blind us. The experience that we have with the pineal gland would not be there. We would not have those experiences. How do I know that? Because when all of us were involved in church as deeply as we were, the pineal gland was just that, a pineal gland. And the talk about a third eye was pagan. And anyone who talked about that was demonic. See the difference?
Yes.
Yes.
So cultivation of our desire for enlightenment has brought us to this place of understanding what all of these things represent, what they represent in terms of their manifestation in this body. And when I talked about the other part of your question, Ron, when I talked about my body, what I was saying in essence is this: if I'm not in this body, the pineal gland, the brain, the heart, nothing can function without me. And when I say my body, who is the mind? The mind is the spiritual essence that you are. Body is the physical thing that you are housed in for the express purpose of creating an environment, a consciousness in this earth physical realm as the consciousness in the spiritual realm. This body will always exist. It exists the way it does now because we are not functioning as we were created to function. When Jesus' resurrection took place, he was able to move in and out of this realm. He could manifest in a physical body and move as a physical person and even eat as a physical person. However, he also moved into the spiritual realm and was not seen by physical eyes. So that's telling us that when we bring into existence in this consciousness, when this consciousness becomes the same consciousness as it is in the spiritual realm, then this physical body will still exist, but it will not exist to the extent that it separates us from the spiritual, or we feel like it's separating us from the spiritual. We will become one with it, and it would no longer be a grave. It would be a vehicle that allows us to interact with each other. Can you see the significance of that?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's imperative that the cultivation continues. It's imperative that we truly stop being concerned about self in that somebody hurt my feelings. I don't know what I'm going to do for tomorrow. I'm so afraid that I'm not going to make it. Take no thought for tomorrow, for it has enough troubles of its own. meaning that the troubles of tomorrow are only in your mind because tomorrow doesn't exist. You are always in today, always. Simply because the sun hides itself and the moon is the only light of the night, it doesn't mean that the day is gone. It simply means that a transition has taken place. The night reminds us that wisdom is not seen until there is light shone upon it. When daybreak comes, we begin to see the light. We began to see the enlightenment of the wisdom that we had just come through, or that we had just been in contact with. The Bible, for example, has been in our grasp for as long as we can remember, and we've been walking around with wisdom and not even knowing it. And now that we are able to decipher what Ein Sof has sent to us through Elohim, through Yahweh, through Jehovah, all these things have come to us to bring us an understanding of this wisdom so we don't have to be in the dark. We can walk in the light. It's very difficult to walk in the light when you're looking at yourself. The lights on a car do not shine on the car. The lights on the car shows you the way. So when you are concerned about what's going to happen to you, or whether or not you're going to make it, or things are going to happen the way you want them to, you are shining the light on you. And you cannot see your way because it's dark. And when you take the light off of you, then you can see the wisdom of what's happening. How many times have we said that these circumstances are going to drown me, or something to that effect anyway? I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh my God, I'm not going to make it. And then when something happened, we look back at it and say, oh my God, this was all for my good. It's simply saying that the longer it takes us to take the light off of us, the longer it's going to take us to see the wisdom in our walk. Questions about that? I'm a classic example of it. I tell anyone, I am a classic example of like, oh my God, woe is me. Why is this happening to me? Until I got to the place of saying, if anyone can be enlightened, so can I. And then
I'm
I would
guilty as
ask,
well.
and I'm sure all of us are. And
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm beginning to see enlightenment. I'm beginning to be enlightened, brother. And I'm enlightening others. And then I hear this little voice saying, what makes you think you know? And no one else does. Who do you think you are that you should receive enlightenment? And those who've been here for years have not. Until I got to the place of saying, why not me? Why not me? The reason is me is because my desires are being met. And my obligation is to bring others along with me so that they can see as well that it's not a handpicked one. It is a one who desires to be chosen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Pastor, I'm glad you
And
said that. I needed to hear that today.
I'm gonna say it again.
Yeah, say it again for him.
Say
It,
it.
it's not that. 'Cause see, God is not what is it? A people. Oh God, He does not favor anyone over someone else. Your desire is what makes you chosen. You have to have a desire for enlightenment, and now you have been chosen to receive it. And when I got to that place of embracing that, and more now than ever before, I have very, very few interludes with why me. Matter of fact, I have none with why me. I have a lot of with why not me. It should be me. Just like you should be saying it should be you. I should have an awareness of who I am. I should never doubt who I am. I should always search to understand more about my existence. And the more I understand about my existence, the more I have opportunity to share it with others. And the more I can share it with others, the greater it is for mankind, because we are bringing into this environment enlightenment, righteousness, loving kindness, so that this environment will not exist for the benefit of a few. This earth environment already has all the harmony that it needs. It just needs somebody to stand in the gap between disharmony and harmony. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everything is already here. The manifestation is not seen because we are not there yet in terms of being ready. And being ready has nothing with TDJ, get ready, get ready. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with how you purge yourself, how you interact with circumstances in your life, how you interact with people in your life, how you interact with things in your life, how you interact with you.
Hey, Rev, I got a question.
Mhm.
So, when most people be saying, I have to seek God for this situation, or I got to seek God to find out, what I need to do. So, you actually is looking in within yourself and see the Elohim in you to know what to do. So, you actually, I ain't saying you're not seeking God, but you're seeking yourself and to find out more about yourself.
What you're actually doing is becoming more aware of how to handle, how you were created to deal with situations. And if you cannot figure out how to deal with it, leave it alone. Leave it alone. Because you are Elohim. What you're trying to do is deal with it with your mind as a mere man. When we say work itself out, all we're saying is that the universe will handle, and you are the universe. So yes, Charles, you're talking to you. You're
Okay.
actually talking to the circumstance.
Thank you, man.
See, you're welcome, son. Thank you. The simplicity of it is complicated because we have been conditioned to say, man, that's hard. I'm trying. You have never accomplished anything that you tried. Either you do it or you don't. Yes, it's difficult because you haven't started yet. You can't do anything that you don't start. You won't accomplish anything if you don't have a beginning. You have the greatest beginning ever. You have a beginning that you have never left. There is no excuse for not being who you were created to be. There was no excuse for not living as you were created to live, because you always are in beginning, so you always have an opportunity to start. And regardless of how much you understand, you're still at beginning so that you can start understanding more. And the more you understand, the more you see who you are. And the more you see who you are, the more obligation you have to share with others so they can see who they are. I'm done. Right?
Okay. Questions, y'all? Anybody? Questions or comments?
I want to ask a question here. You said as we're changing, becoming more aware of who we are, others will see that and that's how they'll make the change.
Others, when you say see that, you mean people at your job?
Well, anyone I'm interacting with, will they see will the change, I guess it's energy. So would our change in energy, that would affect their changing of energy?
They will be aware of you being different, but they may not necessarily know what that means. However, it's not only limited to the people that you interact with.
Right.
It also includes the people you interact with. When you interact with yourself, you interact with me too. The interaction is with humanity. And
Okay.
that's what we're talking about when we talk about putting things in the macro. That's interacting with humanity. We have a global interaction.
Got it.
I have a question. So is that the same, what Ramil was talking about? Is that the same as a butterfly effect?
Yeah. And it's the same principle. Each one teach one, right? Same principle.
Okay.
The butterfly, it's what happens exponentially. It starts at one place and it moves like a wave until it spreads exponentially to everyone. That kind of thing.
If we can back up a minute, you said something earlier, and you said something Saturday too, and I was trying to remember what it was, but we talked about earlier tonight separation. That is what we've been taught is valuable. And I'm trying to say this in my words and not the way you said it, but you have Catholic and you have Baptist, you have this and you have that, you have Muslims, you have these. All of those are different languages, and we are taught that separation. We are taught to bring value to it. Mine is not necessarily better, but kind of sort of. This is who I am, so this is above the rest, and we establish our levels of consciousness on those separations. And we do it in jobs, we do it in of course by race. The way we pick what neighborhoods to live in, the world sees you as middle class or this class or that class or third world or first world. With the separation is the value. And what we just described from Mill's question and talking about the butterfly effect, it's not that the mill is a part of the universe. The mill is the universe. And when somebody else sees that and sees that her value that she offers, the enlightenment is greater than their separation, then that becomes the butterfly effect. And people, does that make sense? You see what I'm trying to say?
I do.
And people open up and their values are laid aside for your values. They see something, they see the more. They see something more valuable than what they've been holding on to. And that's the universe. That's where our energies become one. That's the oneness. And you know, let's face it, that separation is what keeps the energy from flowing the way it's supposed to, the way it's designed to. And so this is the start of it, I would suppose, or maybe our ancestors started it, and we are picking up the mantle and moving forward with it. But I just see a connection based on the question she asked, dismantling that.
Right. You're right. But you do know
Yeah.
the butterfly effect goes the other way too.
Okay,
When
go
people
ahead.
start getting tired of religion, it moves as the butterfly effect too.
Yeah.
It start moving out from it. Same principle happens. And
I read.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just thought of something to support what you said. Where I think I read 100 some odd churches are leaving the. What was it? Was it the Southern
116.
Methodist?
Yeah,
Okay.
the United Method.
You know.
116
Yeah.
churches in South Carolina.
It's out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just thought about that.
No. That's the truth. That's the butterfly effect. That
Yeah.
it didn't start with the Methodists. In terms of being publicly known, it started with the evangelicals. Remember
Yeah.
and it started years ago with the evangelicals. When the evangelical church started, when the Southern Baptist Church started reaching out to African churches to pull them into the fold, it was not because they wanted them in there. It was because they wanted to increase their numbers because their children were leaving. And the way they did it was churches that were storefronts. They were offering to build them, to give them a building, and they were offering to set up retirement plans. In other words, they were trying to buy them. And why am I so familiar with it? Because they tried to buy Greater New Faith. And we were in a storefront. And I would rather be in the storefront than to be owned by somebody who does not have my best interest at heart. That's the butterfly effect. It's falling apart. And when things fall apart, people begin to lose it because they don't know what to do with it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. Any other questions, comments? No one? Is that it? You guys want to go further, or you want to pause here for the night? Okay. Well, I tell you what, then let's pause then and
They don't know
resume Saturday.
what. They don't want to stay in there. They don't know whether they want to pause or keep going.
That is so true, Pastor.
They are.
I don't know whether I want to go or hold for a moment.
Okay. Well, I had something, and mine is it's more of a question. It's not, it's something that, talking about cultivating is something we could dig in if you guys wanted to, but it may be a little time consuming. So why don't we, why don't we pause here then and resume Saturday morning?
No, we don't. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we will not be
You're,
together.
you're exactly right. I apologize. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No apology necessary. Man, I forgot the whole holiday the other week. So,
Yeah. It too.
yeah, and we are encouraging you to celebrate Juneteenth, and because we are embracing it the way we are, you're going to see how it expands within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
And Juneteenth talks about the freedom from enslavement. But I want you to know that we are embracing it, and the freedom from enslavement is not just for us now; it's for humanity. So when we embrace Juneteenth as a celebration of the freedom of the African, that is the celebration of the spiritual freedom of humanity. Can you see that?
I like that. Yeah.
That's just who we are. It is impossible for spiritual people who have a spiritual awareness of who they are and have some inkling, not necessarily understanding, but some inkling of the abilities or power that they have. It is impossible for them to embrace something for just a group of people. It's always for humanity. So celebrate the celebration of this freedom is not saying it's going to come, because Juneteenth was not about celebrating for freedom in the future. It was the now. And we are celebrating the manifestation of the freedom of humanity to be who they were created to be, or to be who we were created to be, the essence of Elohim, without regard to what anyone says or thinks. Because, as Malaya said, if it's of man, now if it's of God, you can't stop it. But if it's of man, it'll stop itself. And everything that besets humanity was set into motion by men. And this is not of God. This is Elohim functioning earth as it was designed to function, or as it was created to function in this earth, and no one can stop it. That's the manifestation. I'm done.
So I have a question. Before we go. So are we the butterfly that's making the effect, the changes?
I suppose we are. And we don't have to get that in depth with it, but I suppose we are, because we're putting things in the macro, right?
Yes.
And what you said 25 years ago is still in the universe. The sound waves are just so far apart now, you can't hear it with your ears audibly. So when we talk about putting things in the macro, it's there. And just because you can't hear it with your ears doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The energy of it is more powerful than the energy that seeks to stand against it. Because the energy that seeks to stand against it is like a short wire that has been short circuited. It is like a wire that you every time you plug something up, it flickers and goes out. Because the energy flow is not stable. But when it's the energy of Elohim, it's always stable. And that energy that seeks to overshadow it or stop it finds that it becomes one with the energy that it has been trying to overcome. Make sense?
It does. And by us honoring Juneteenth, I don't know if I should ask this question or not. I'm going to ask it anyway. So by us
You know where to go.
honoring Juneteenth,
Uh-huh.
huh?
I say, uh-huh. What? Go ahead.
Oh, will we, do you think we'll be experiencing more of our ancestors? I know we are our ancestors, but working toward what needs to be done in the universe. I think I'm trying to.
I understand what you're asking, mate. I do.
Okay.
When we honor Juneteenth, we're honoring our ancestors. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are. Without the ancestors, we would not have an inkling of what truth is. Without the ancestors, we would not understand the scriptures. When we talk about, well, your mama is an ancestor, my mama is an ancestor, we're not talking about Betty Rose being an ancestor, you know, in terms of who she was in this physical earth. We're talking about that essence. And her essence is no different than the essence of all of us, of all of humanity who has entered that realm of the spirit. All of those who have left the body in the earth and traveled to a place of light. That's the ancestor. Can you see that?
And that
Yeah.
is that is the strength of if we when and how we learn to stay in the present, and the you know the future and the past and all those things, those are weakening who you are and what we're trying to accomplish. But
Yeah.
when we can stay present is when we're one with the ancestors, when we're one with ourselves. That is the strength. That is our highest elevation as far as our vibration. So,
And the reason we see people, an apparition of them, after they have transitioned, and we say, she spoke to me, the Creator allows that because it gets your attention. If my granddaddy were to come to you and speak to you, you wouldn't know who he is. You'd be like, this strange man, I don't know now. But if it's your folk who you know, it gets your attention. The reason it is
And I get-
necessary for you to see an image of that physical one that you know of is because we are so caught up in physicality until we miss the voice of the spiritual speaking to us in so many times. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say a perfect example of that is like when my mom transitioned, how I was crying and everything, and I heard her in my soul. She said, "Why are you crying? You or me?" So that's how I see what you're talking about, the familiar voice and how it speaks to your
Yes.
soul. The ancestors
Right.
speak to your soul. So yeah.
And
Okay.
guess what? Guess what? It's your soul speaking to you in a voice that you recognize.
Mm. In the
If
words
you
of
hear
Ron
the
Johnson, I like that. I like that.
Lamar, you hear that? You can quote Ron if you want to.
I know.
Guess what though? If you hear it in your own voice, you say you're talking to yourself, right? That wasn't God, that
Okay.
was me. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You just talk, you just telling yourself stuff and you falling for it. Something wrong with you. That's what we tell ourselves. And that's why the voice rather, is that we hear it is familiar. And it's the voice of someone who has transitioned. I remember when I was a little boy, I used to travel to revivals with my grandmama, well, all the old folks really. And we will understand it in the by and by. Anybody remember that song? By and by. When the what comes?
When the morning
comes,
comes.
yeah. Yes, yeah. That song is really a spiritual song. The morning is the beginning of enlightenment. That's when we understand it. When you transition from this body, you leave everything of this world behind. And you see what really is as opposed to the illusion of what you think it is. That's why if I transition before y'all, you can always hear from me because I'm coming.
We're going to energy walker.
In the middle of the night,
Why you got to come at night?
because I'm coming in the midst of
Pick another
wisdom.
time. Okay, okay, I'll accept that. Okay.
Hey, Reb,
Yes, sir.
Catherine said she'll put the cross over her door.
Okay, I take it down. I take it. I take it down and bring it in with me.
No.
But it seriously,
I'll send for a letter in the mail, Sage, okay? Just a letter in the mail.
I don't need to write. I see your email from heaven. That's what you're saying.
That'll work.
Hey, Ron, it's time. It's definitely time for us to go right.
It's time.
Oh.
Okay. Sometimes it's good to ease up some, to lighten up some. I want you to enjoy not just this week, but especially next weekend. Okay. If there are events that you can get to, please go. And promise you will learn a lot, especially from those who are giving those speeches. I'm done, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great session, everyone. Enjoy your week next weekend, and look forward to meeting again. Okay. Have a good night.
Everyone have a good
Okay.
night.
Night.
Good night.